Strategies of Alexander the Great. Conquering the ancient world. In the history of the world, few figures have had an impact on Alexander the Great. A military genius, a conqueror, and a king, he led his military to victories throughout 3 continents and modified the direction of history. But what made Alexander so successful? How did he overcome the historical world and go away with a legacy that lasts to this day? In this video, we will explore the strategies of Alexander the Great and find out what made him one of the biggest military leaders of all time. From the beginning of his reign, Alexander set out to expand his empire, and he did so with incredible speed and efficiency. His procedures had been groundbreaking and his management unparalleled. So get ready to travel back in time to the era of Alexander the Great, as we explore the man and the fantasy behind one of history's greatest conquerors. The Macedonian phalanx was once one of the most formidable military formations of the ancient world, and it performed a quintessential position in Alexander's early conquests. At its core, the phalanx used to be a formation of tightly packed spearmen who held their shields in front of them to create an almost impenetrable wall. The phalanx used to be designed to go as a unit, with every soldier overlaying the man to his left with his shield. This allowed the phalanx to strengthen steadily and crush any opposition. Alexander made extensive use of the phalanx in his campaigns. At the Battle of Issus, he deployed his phalanx in the core of his army, flanked by using his cavalry on either side. This formation allowed him to maintain his phalanx included from the enemy's assaults whilst his cavalry swept around the aspects to assault from the rear. The phalanx also performed a key position in Alexander's victory at the Battle of Granicus, the place he used to damage the enemy's strains and achieve a decisive advantage. However, the phalanx was not without its weaknesses. It was once susceptible to assaults from the flanks or the rear, and it was once hard to maneuver in tough terrain. Alexander diagnosed these weaknesses and developed systems to tackle them, such as the use of his cavalry to guard the phalanx's flanks and keep off difficult terrain every time possible. By the use of the phalanx in a mixture of different navy units, Alexander used to be able to create an enormously fine army machine that was once almost unstoppable. In addition to the phalanx, Alexander made giant use of cavalry in his campaigns. He employed each heavy and mild cavalry, every with its strengths and weaknesses. Heavy cavalry, which consisted of closely armored horsemen armed with lances or swords, used to be used specifically for shock attacks. Light cavalry, on the different hand, was once used for scouting and harassment, as properly as for pursuing withdrawing enemies. One of Alexander's most well-known victories, the Battle of Gaugamela, used to be gained through his use of cavalry charges. He deployed his heavy cavalry on both flanks of his army, to encircle the enemy and assault them from behind. This tactic was labored brilliantly, and the Persian navy was once quickly overwhelmed. However, Alexander's cavalry additionally performed a key position in many different battles, together with the Battle of Issus and the Battle of Hydaspes. Alexander's cavalry used to be no longer simply equipment for attacking the enemy. It was once additionally used for reconnaissance and scouting, permitting him to obtain precious talent about the enemy's moves and positions. In addition, his cavalry used to be used to tightly close Grant traces and defend his military from shock attacks. By the use of his cavalry effectively, Alexander was able to outmaneuver and defeat even large enemy armies. Alexander used to be a knowledgeable siege commander, and he used his engineering knowledge to outstanding impact on his campaigns. He was once in a position to take some of the most closely fortified cities of the historic world, which include Tyre and Gaza. His techniques covered constructing huge siege engines, such as catapults and battering rams, as properly as digging tunnels to undermine town walls. At Tyre, Alexander confronted a specifically challenging challenge. The town was once placed on an island, and its partitions had been almost impregnable. Undaunted, Alexander determined to build a causeway from the mainland to the island, the usage of earth and rubble to fill in the sea. This challenge took various months, and it used to be continuously under assault by the defenders of Tyre. However, Alexander was once capable to persevere, and as soon as the causeway was once completed, he was once capable to breach the partitions and take the city. Alexander's siege systems have been no longer restricted to brute force. He was once additionally acknowledged for the use of psychological fighting to put on down his enemies. For example, at the siege of Halicarnassus, he used mockwood battering rams to create the influence that his military was once extra effective than it was. This precipitated the defenders to grow to be demoralized and surrender. One of Alexander's biggest strengths as a Novia Cosi commander used to be his potential to adapt to altering situations on the battlefield. He used to be recognized for his flexibility and his willingness to change techniques mid-battle if necessary. This allowed him to react rapidly to surprising trends and turn the tide of warfare in his favor. At the Battle of Issus, for example, Alexander confronted a large and greater closely armed Persian army. Rather than enticing in a head-on battle, he selected to use his best mobility to outflank the enemy and assault them from behind. This tactic caught the Persians off defend and allowed Alexander to acquire a decisive victory. Alexander used to be also known for his capacity to adapt to unique environments. He was once equally cozy in the conflict in the mountains of Afghanistan as he was once in the deserts of Egypt. This adaptability allowed him to take gain of the terrain and local weather in every location and use it to his advantage. Alexander used to be no longer simply a tactical genius, he used to be additionally a superb strategist. He had a long-term imagination and was prescient for his conquests, and he deliberated his campaigns cautiously to reap his goals. He was once in a position to examine the strengths and weaknesses of his enemies and use that information to his advantage. One of Alexander's most awesome strategic feats was once his conquest of the Persian Empire. He diagnosed that the Persians had been weakened through interior strife and disunity, and he took gain of this to defeat them with the aid of one. He additionally diagnosed that the Persian navy used to be no suit for his own, and he used this to his benefit to invulnerable his provide strains and transport his troops throughout the Persian Gulf. Alexander's conquests modified the path of history, and his legacy continues to be felt today. He created one of the greatest empires the world had ever seen, stretching from Greece to India. He also unfolded the Greek lifestyle and thoughts for the duration of the historic world, growing a cultural trade that would have a lasting impact. Alexander's navy techniques and procedures have been studied by using army leaders at some stage in history, and his legacy continues to encourage new generations of leaders. His mixture of tactical brilliance, strategic vision, and inspiring management makes him one of the best army commanders of all time. Despite his many achievements, Alexander's legacy is no longer controversial. He was once acknowledged for his ruthless approaches on the battlefield, and his conquests regularly got here at a fantastic value to human lives. He was once also known for his conceitedness and his tendency to put himself above his troops. Regardless of these criticisms, however, there is no denying that Alexander's navy techniques and procedures revolutionized fighting and changed the course of history. His legacy continues to encourage new generations of leaders, and his achievements will continually be remembered as some of the best in the records of the world. We hope you have gained a greater appreciation for the military genius of this ancient commander and how his tactics and leadership shaped history. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to our channel, The History Hub, for more fascinating stories about the people, events, and ideas that have shaped our world. We have a wealth of content on a variety of historical topics, and we are always adding new videos to our channel. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in our next video on The History Hub.